we are going to talk about our Kush debrief today. Finally, we get to talk about our Kush debrief. It definitely would be a different conversation. I definitely would rather have the conversation with somebody else, but hey, I'm sure we can have the conversation together by answering the questions that you have. And yes, this is about Kush specifically, but at the end of the day, Kush itself, the extent at which it is right now in Sierra Leone is in general an addiction crisis. So addiction will be the focus of the conversation. And we'll just highlight Kush and exactly what it is doing to the youth in Sierra Leone. And I'll go through, I actually thought it would be a good idea to go through the comments, some of the comments that we got from the Kush episode, because it was quite interesting. Although we are saying that it is an addiction and it is a concern, there was somebody from a country that was like, you guys, this is not a problem. Just make some money off of the drugs. And I was like, okay, this person definitely has a whole different perspective to Kush and drug use in general than I have. And conversations like this help us to hear each other's perspectives, although I do not agree with that perspective at all, because I feel like whether you make money off of it or not, it is causing harm to the lives of innocent people in general, and it should not be tolerated, it should not be supported, it should not be anywhere near the country or the youth at all. To anybody joining now, if you can please add your name and country you're joining from, I truly would appreciate that. My name is Becca, aka the Sierra Leone. I am the host of Dim Dim Podcast. And if you have not subscribed to the Dim Dim Podcast channel yet, this is your chance to go and do that. We need you on board, our Dim Dim family. Dim Dim Podcast talks everything about misconceptions, perceptions, assumptions, and frustrations that diasporans or Africans in the diaspora go through, and that of which our relatives and friends back home do experience as well. Our last episode was on the Kush Crisis in Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone is my country of birth. I'm a proud Sierra Leonean. And so seeing how many youth are dying and are being affected negatively by this Kush drug really breaks my heart. And there's so much we can all do, but there's something everybody can do when a crisis like this does present itself. There's something we can all do to support from a distance, within the country, like one way or the other. There's something we can do to support, and this is my own way of extending a hand of support to my fellow Sierra Leoneans, of telling the people that are affected by the Kush crisis that I care. I may not be in the country, but I see you, I hear you, and I feel your pain. And I really genuinely hope that we can all hold hands together to resolve this crisis once and for all, because we need to. We need to. I don't know what people are doing, but I do know that there are a few treatment centers that seem to be making progress in the recovery sector, and they tend to be taking, I don't want to say a religious approach, but I see a few Christian-based shadow figure in my room. Oh, that's your name, shadow figure in your room. I thought that's a shadow figure in my room. Hello, how are you? Shadow figure in your room, how are you? Hope you're good. A beautiful name, by the way, very unique. And Joreen, Anjorin, did I say that right? Hi, how are you? I'm fine, shadow figure in your room. Hello, lover, not a fighter. Interesting names, you guys. Hello, my name is Becca, aka the Sierra Leone. I am host of Dim Dim Podcast, and I'm here today to talk about the Kush Crisis in Sierra Leone. I thought Kush was sort of like specific to Sierra Leone. I thought it was just like a nickname, like the Kush drug itself. I just thought it was just a nickname that they gave to the drug that's like really causing a lot of crisis in Sierra Leone right now. And to those who do not know, Sierra Leone is a small country in West Africa, and that's where I was born. So I take this very personal. But it turns out a lot of people around the world know about Kush. It's actually a general name. It's actually a general name for that kind of drug. The only thing with the Kush in Sierra Leone, and I don't know if other countries are experiencing this as well or know this, but apparently the Kush in Sierra Leone is mixed with bone marrows from corpses. Just saying it just gives me the goosebumps. Like, why? Why would anybody want to eat your fellow human, whether dead or alive? Okay. Now that that is out of my system, we're talking about Kush and Doreen. We're talking about Kush, the Kush drug in Sierra Leone. There's a lot of youth that are really affected by the Kush drug, and it's just causing, yeah, me too. It's just causing a lot of harm in general. I see people have open wounds on their feet, and people are literally rotting away before they even pass. If you haven't seen the video, the episode that we have on the Kush Crisis, we actually added some live feed videos of people that have been affected by this Kush drug back in Sierra Leone. And it's just, I still cannot watch it without turning away. That's just how I don't want to say gross, because it's not gross, but it's disturbing. It's mentally disturbing. Yeah, but as much as we don't want to see it, shadow figure in your room, as much as we don't want to see it, it's the reality. It's the reality of people's lives currently in Sierra Leone, especially the youth. And these are youth that have gone through school, and some of them have gone through college, but unfortunately the job market within the country is very poor. So they get caught in drug uses like this or drugs like this, and they don't even know how to get out of it. And their lives are like just wasting away just like that. And the challenge that I see with most of this drug use, to be honest, the whole world is messed up. I would agree to a large extent. Different aspects of messed up for sure. But for Sierra Leone right now, the Kush is the bigger messed up situation that we have going on, aside from all the other economy, government, political issues that I do not want to focus on right now. Thank you for praying for them. I'm sure that they appreciate that. But I think the one of the major reasons that get people caught up in drug use in general is the lack of knowledge. Because sometimes we don't know what we're using, and if it's one big challenge that I see people have, I'm doing good. Gabrielle, did I say that right? Thank you. How are you? Hope you're good too. Talking about lack of knowledge, I find that most times people try things without even knowing what they're trying. People get caught up, whether by peer pressure or somebody tells you, oh, I tried this stuff and I forgot about all my problems. I forgot about everything that was happening in my life or that's happening in my life that I don't want to be a part of. And they get caught up that way, right? And you're like, okay, let's try it. And when you try it, these things actually are more than just an external thing, right? They get your brain reacts to this different substance that it's not familiar with at all. And now it feels as though it needs to have this particular thing because it is addictive, right? So now you start feeling like you actually need this substance to survive. And the more of it you take, for some people, the more your tolerance increases. And the more your tolerance increases, the more you start feeling like, oh, I need to take more and more of it to get that same effect. Or for those who are using it to numb, there are too many problems in the world. Most people are dealing with so many problems, and their problems are getting the better of them, unfortunately. Like it's like an attachment. Exactly, shadow fight in your room. That's what it's like, right? Like you feel like you've been exposed to this thing, because addiction does not happen in one day. It doesn't. And the thing is, you get lured in, right? You take it the first time and you're like, oh my goodness, I feel so good. For the first time, I was able to forget about all my problems for at least 10 minutes. And it feels good to be in a place like that where you don't think about anything, you don't think about anyone, you feel invisible, you feel like you need it. If not, you'll do anything for it. Exactly. When it gets to that point, that's when the addiction starts sinking in. And it's unfortunate because some people, even when it gets to that point, they will still be in denial. They will still be in denial. It starts to affect your participation at work. Like it takes control of you. Exactly. It starts to affect your participation at work. It starts to affect your time with family. It starts to affect your time with loved ones. It even starts to affect your time with yourself, because you don't want people to see you in this situation, you don't want people to see you using, you don't want people to judge you, you start to avoid the crowd. You'd rather be alone in your room. You'd rather hide away. You don't want people to feel as though, oh my goodness, this person is using. So the more I hide from people, the less chance there is for them to know what is happening in my life, for them to know that I'm using this drug, for them to know that I'm using this substance. And the more you hide, the more you use behind closed doors, the bigger chance there is for you to use more. Now you're just lost in that drug. Exactly. Now you get lost, and instead of you using the drug and using the amount that you want to use, you feel like you're not able to stop when you want to stop. You feel like you just want to continue going, right? And the more you do that, the more attachments or stuff, I don't know the right term to use for this, but the more you are adding this substance in your brain, and it's just causing a whole sort of situation inside of your brain in general, right? What's bad about cigarettes and vapes is that kids in middle school and high school do it and take it. Now that's a whole other situation. Don't get me started on that. That's a whole other situation, shadow figure in your room. It's a whole other situation. And all these things are addictive. It's heartbroken. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, these are our future generation, right? Like we're talking about our future generation. We're talking about using a substance that's a lot easier to start using than it is to stop using. I'm going to say that again. It's a lot easier to start using some of these drugs than it is to stop using them. It is. Because what you don't know, right? But at the same time, knowledge is power. Now that you know that, hey, drugs that are addictive, going back to Kush, they said Kush is a mixture of marijuana. Somebody said tramadol, and somebody said fentanyl, and then the bone marrow of a dead person. Like, who came up with the idea? Who sat down, decided it was a good idea to go to the graveyard, dig up corpses, take their bone marrow, add to drugs, and smoke it? Why? Oh, why? And then you wonder why people are rotting while they're still alive. This is not even funny. It's not even funny, but why would you do something like that? And I'm sure that half the people who are using these drugs have no idea what they're smoking. They have no idea what they're smoking, because if they do, I genuinely do not think they would use that drug. I genuinely do not think they would go ahead and use it, but they do. And so going into, there are several reasons why people use, based off of what I've heard from people, right? And even some of this youth that are affected by the Kush drugs in Sierra Leone, I personally have had a chance to talk with them. And some of the things that come up is, well, I finished school and I thought I was gonna go get a job and work and be able to provide for my family, but there are no jobs. Okay, that's a very rational excuse. But now that you're using the drug, it decreases your ability to get and keep a job. Did that solve a problem? I don't think so. Yes, please, shadow figure in your room, you can go ahead and ask. I don't think it solves the problem, right? And some people will say, well, my relationship ended with someone and it hurt me so much and I didn't know how to deal with the pain. Are you into tornadoes? It depends on what you mean. Like, if I like them, if I like watching them, if I like being part of them, explain that a little bit more. But yeah, some people say I started using drugs because I was in a very bad heartbreak, a relationship of so many years. The person decided to leave and it hurt me so much. Like learning about them. I'd love to learn about them for sure. Yeah, I'm not necessarily doing much of that right now, but I'll definitely love to learn about them. But yeah, some people say I was in a very difficult heartbreak, and because of that I started using drugs because I did not know how to handle the pain. The emotional pain was just too much for me. Some people say, well, from a very young age, somebody in my family or somebody within my community exposed me to this drug, and now I feel like I don't know what to do with it. Yeah, I love to study and learn about them. Yeah, please, if you want to leave a link or something, if you have a channel that I can check out, I would be more than happy to do that. But yeah, there are different circumstances, there are different situations that lead people or that influence people's decision to start using drugs. And that's what people in Sierra Leone will tell you, that using drugs was not, I did not just wake up one morning and say, yes, I am fine, I'm going to use Kush today, and I know it's going to destroy me, but I'm going to use it anyway. No. Most people do not know the negative impact that Kush has before they start using it, unfortunately. And that's the same with most people that are struggling with addiction. They do not know the negative impact that the substances do have before they start using them. And the extent at which it does affect you as an individual is influenced by several other factors that I cannot necessarily speak to today. But at the end of the day, when we talk about prevention, we talk about cure. Starting with prevention, I would say addiction in general. If you are someone that has never tried any kind of drug, if you've never tried any type of drug. I am encouraging you today as a sister from another mother and another father, do not. You're not missing out on anything. When people go through heartbreaks, people don't know how to cope with them. Exactly. So they resort to drug. Exactly. And I would say a bigger chunk of that population again would be men. Because I feel like women are allowed to cry. Like society allows women to cry and to be emotional because we're known for that. They're like, these are the emotional few, so they can cry. They are good for this, right? But men, on the other hand, most of the messaging we've heard growing up is men don't cry. The minute you start crying, they're like, be a man. Men don't cry. Like, man up, right? Those are some of the messaging that you hear. And if you go through something emotionally draining, but you cannot let it out, those tears are there for a reason. We are blessed with tears for a reason. When you cry, it's like an emotional detox. It's like you're letting out all of that toxic energy within you, and you're cleansing yourself. You're detoxing from the pain. So now, if you say, I am a man, and crying makes me look weak, crying makes me look like I'm not man enough, and you bottle all of that up inside, of course you're going to look for another way to numb it. Because drugs don't make the pain go away. They don't. It may numb it. It's like a band-aid, like taking a band-aid and putting it over a wound, right? So you take a band-aid and you put it over your wound just to cover it up. But it does not necessarily heal the wound, because you still need treatment to heal that wound, especially if it's a very big wound, right? Or a deep wound that needs medical attention. You still need to give it the medical attention that it deserves for it to heal. So the bandage may make it disappear for a second, may make it invisible for a second, may take it out of sight for a second, just like the drugs and the alcohol would. They would make that pain seem invisible for a second, but it is only waiting for you. As soon as the severity of the alcohol starts to decrease, or the drug starts to decrease, it's gonna come back like a flood. Hi, Daddy. Another unknown factor for new users is the issue of tolerance. Yes, tolerance is a big deal. Tolerance, which is the need to use more with time to get the same effect, and the difficulties with quitting because of the severe withdrawals. With quitting because of the severe withdrawals. Exactly. So two different things: tolerance and the difficulties of quitting because of severe withdrawals. Let's start with tolerance. So when we talk about tolerance, let's say, how do I say this? Before you start using drugs at all, your brain is not familiar with this thing, right? Your system is not familiar with it. So it's a very new thing in general that you're introducing to your system. So you take a little drop of something. Let's say pills, okay? Pills, for example. You take one pill because it is something completely new to your system. Your system, it takes effect right away. It takes effect right away, and you feel whatever it is you're trying to get out of it. Okay, you've done this day 1, day 2, day 3, week 1, week 2. It still works. But now you start to realize, because your system is now getting familiar with it, one is not enough for you anymore for you to get the same effect that you got the first day you took it, because that's the effect that you're looking for. So now, instead of taking one and getting that effect and being okay with it, you're like, this is not working as well. Let me try 2. You take 2 and you get it, because now you've been introduced to a new dose, to a new amount, and so your system again is not familiar with this new amount, so it's giving you that effect that you're looking for. And that's how some people go from 1 to 10. 1 to 10. And the more of it you take, the more issues you're faced with. Because now, initially, your tolerance does increase. And you're causing more harm than good in your system. Now, some people realize, okay, now I'm getting into a zone that is not safe at all. I'm putting too many substances in my system, and this is going to backfire on me. So they decide, okay, let's take some time to either they decide they don't want to use the drugs anymore, so they want to gain sobriety. Some will go to treatment and all of those things, right? Now, when you've taken 2-3 days without using, your system is detoxing these drugs. It is leaving your system through sweats. For some people will go through severe withdrawals, right? And the withdrawals can look like hot and cold sweat. 1 minute you feel hot, the next minute you feel cold. Withdrawals would look like feeling sick to your stomach. Withdrawals will look like massive headache. You are irritable. People cannot be around you because you are just like you don't even want, you just want to crawl out of your own skin because it's that uncomfortable. Now, it takes about 3 days for some people, a minimum of 3 days. It can go anywhere from 3 to 7 days for you to go through that system, because you're trying to flush out the substance out of your system. And when you do that, and you successfully make it through the challenging time, anxiety tremors, yes, anxiety, that fear of dying, because you're not really sure what's happening to you. You feel like you're gonna die, so you're like, you're literally afraid because you don't know what's happening to you. And depending on what kind of withdrawals you're going through, if you don't get medical attention, it could get that bad, right? So people get so anxious. That's when they say sometimes we get anxiety about getting anxiety. We're anxious about anxiety itself, right? Because your system is going through this. So because of that, one of the withdrawal symptoms is anxiety. But now you're anxious about that anxiety because you're not sure what's happening to you. But if you know that, hey, these are just withdrawal symptoms, they're going to last 3 to 7 days and then we'll be back, then it sort of like helps you calm down a little bit because you know what is happening. Okay, so you successfully make it past that withdrawal phase. You get the support you need. You're feeling a little better. Some people are going to go through cravings, right? Because again, your system was familiar with this drug, or has been familiar with this drug. Your system has been receiving a consistent dose of this drug, and now it's hungry for it. It is hungry for it, so it's gonna start calling for it, right? And things like your sense of smell, right? It could be a scent that reminds you of it. It could be a sight that reminds you of it. It could be a voice that reminds you of it. It could be a feel of something that reminds you of it. And your thoughts in general. Our mind can be our most vulnerable state or our most powerful state, depending on how you use it. So now you're craving, right? But don't forget, you've gone 3 days, 7 days without this drug. So the tolerance that had increased, because you haven't used it for so long, it is starting to decrease. It is starting to decrease. And for most people, this is how they end up going through an overdose. Because the last time you used it, you remember that you had to use 5 or 7 to get an effect. And so now you feel like you need 5 or 7 to get an effect. But you worked your way up to that tolerance level to be able to get that. And that's how you were able to use 5 to 7 to get an effect. Now you got to work your way down because that tolerance has been decreased. So if you're now here and you use enough for here, we have a problem, a serious problem, because now you're taking a lot more than your system can handle, right? So when you take enough for here because you think where you left it is where it still is, that's when people can struggle with an overdose, because you've given the system a lot more than it can handle. So preferably after you've gone through your detox, you're walking through treatment, it is best to maintain sobriety. It is best to maintain sobriety. But if you're not able to maintain sobriety and you feel the need to go and use again because the cravings are getting the better of you, please, 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 please do not start from where you left off. Your tolerance has now decreased, and it is important to start at a lower level. And with that, I'll talk a little bit about the different stages of change. Now, there are 5 different stages of change as far as I know. There is the pre-contemplation stage. Pre-contemplation is where people are like, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem at all. I only drink like 5 beers. I'm fine. I'm still able to go to work. I'm still able to function. I only take so many amounts of drugs. I function well. I don't have a problem at all. I don't need help. I don't need treatment. I don't know what you people are talking about. When people are in that stage, you can only try and encourage them to see what you see, because you are definitely seeing what they are not seeing, or what you have seen and acknowledged, they have not come to the place where they can acknowledge it. So it takes a lot of tender love and care to help them to see, to get rid of those blindfolds so they can see what you see. And when it gets to that point, we can now progress to contemplation stage. When it comes to contemplation stage, contemplation is where you're like, okay, maybe drinking 5 is a bit more than drinking 1, but hey, Simeon drinks 7 and he's fine. If anybody, Simeon should go and get help, not me. I'm only drinking 5. I know 5 is more than 1, but still 5 is better than 7. So even though you see the problem now, you are comparing the problem with those that you determine to have more of a problem than you do, to excuse your problem so that your problem looks smaller and less severe than others. At this stage again, talking to people, helping them to shed those blindfolds and to see what you see is very important, because the more they see and acknowledge what you see and acknowledge, the better chances of them actually getting the help that they deserve. Now, how do we go about doing this? It is important to have what professionals call motivational interviewing. Motivational interviewing is you're not telling the person what the problem is. You are asking them questions for them to come to that realization themselves. So questions like, or even helping them to trying to like ask questions that remind them of the people that they were prior to using the drugs. So things that they were able to do, maybe their engagement with friends, like what was your social life like, right? What was your work output like? What was your work input like? What was your professional life like? What was your love life like? If these are people who have children, what was your interaction with your children like? How much time do you spend with your children now? The more you ask them those questions, the more they come to that realization that, hey, wait a second, I was spending a lot of time with my kids, but now I'm not with my kids as much, right? Because drug use or alcohol use, when it gets to that severity level, it needs your time and your attention. It's a whole other aspect of your life that needs your time and your attention, right? So now if this is competing, because you need time to get it, you need time to use it, and you need time to allow it to leave your system so that you can go and engage with people, right? So all of that time put together, if it is more than if it is taken away from your professional productivity level, if it is taken away from your time from your family, if it is taken you away from your time with friends, if it is taken away from your time from things and activities that you used to enjoy, then there is a problem. There's a problem, right? So when you're able to get them to come to that realization and it clicks in for them and they're like, oh, yes, Simeon may be drinking 7 and I 5, but at the end of the day, my life and Simeon's life are two different things, and I should focus on me and look within rather than focusing on somebody else's issue. I should focus on my problem and how to deal with my problem. Then that might take us to the action stage of change. No, the preparation stage of change, right? Because now you have to prepare. Preparation stage of change is where you start to talk about, okay, so now I see the problem. Now I want to do something about the problem. What do we do about the problem? That what do we do about the problem now gets us to start to actively look into whether we feel like, is this something I can quit on my own? Do I just need family support around me and people that love and care for me to hold hands with me so I can get this thing behind me? If not, do I need professional help? Do I need therapy? Do I need counseling? Do I need any rehabilitation? Like a rehab, right? And if yes, then what steps do I need to take to go into this? That's the planning phase, right? So you're preparing for what you need to do to get out of this thing that you have considered to be a problem. What do we need to do to resolve the problem? Now, when we successfully get through that planning phase, we're going into action stage. Action stage is where we say, okay, maybe some people just want to take a harm reduction approach. Other people want to actually take like an abstinence approach. And harm reduction, for people who do not know, is exactly what it says. You're trying to reduce the harm that you're causing. So for people who say drank vodka and like the hard liquor, they would say, okay, instead of drinking vodka and hard liquor, how about I just drink beer on the weekend? Something no less than 7% or something no less than 10% on the weekend. I'm not drinking weekdays. I would just say like I have 5 that I have to drink on the weekend, and once I finish the 5, I'm not drinking anymore. That's it. That's a harm reduction approach, right? You're choosing to cut down to an amount that causes less harm to you, as opposed to drinking as the spirit leads or using as the spirit leads. There are certain people, it gets to a certain stage in your addiction level where your best approach, or wine. Yes, thank you very much, Kadi. Wine. So instead of drinking a beer, you can just say, hey, I'll take a glass of wine on the weekend or 2 and keep it at that. And you make sure you go for an amount that is less, like a percentage that is less, right? Now, there's some people, I lost my train of thought there. I was talking about, so the harm reduction level. Now, there's some people that get to a certain stage of severity where your best option is to quit completely, abstinence. Because if you do not quit, trying to just reduce harm may not be visible for you, since you don't feel like you have control over use. If you buy a can, like a case of beer, like a 12 pack, and you only say you want to drink 5, the chances of you drinking all 12 instead of the 5 that you want to drink are high. You are more likely to drink all 12 than 5. Now, when you are in that situation, you know that your best route is to quit completely. Now, that is the abstinence. If you choose to abstain completely from drugs and alcohol, I don't even think harm reduction is an option for drugs. It's not something that I would recommend, right? But some people will say, hey, I'll just smoke, I'll just do edibles or smoke weed, say like once every week or so, or do the oil and stuff like that. If you genuinely believe, because the thing about sobriety, it's an individual journey. Your professionals can be there to help, but at the end of the day, this is your journey. So the things that you are willing to do and the things that you are able to do are what will get you to the other side of that journey. People can hold hands with you and it helps immensely, but the walk you have to take. You have to be willing and able to do it. So let's say you want complete abstinence. Okay. Now, that means you're going to have to go through detox, and you need to leave your environment completely. For some people anyways, there are people that have been able to quit on their own within that environment and not feel the need to go for treatment. People like that have been able to do it, and they say they've been able to do it. They have that that family support around them to help them do it. So technically they're not on their own doing it. They just have natural support instead of professional support, and they're able to do it. But for those who need professional support, this is where you have to look into what rehab treatments are available within your environment. And then you apply for that treatment. I know here in my part of the world where I live right now, you have treatment facilities that go from 19 days to some go up to 6 months. Because there is that idea of the longer you stay from the environment that you were using actively, the better the chance of you actually being able to walk through that drug. Another example of harm reduction. I see another example of harm reduction, but I don't see the example. I'm sure it's coming. But yeah, being away from the environment in general. So the action is you taking action to go into a treatment facility to help get the help that you need to regain that ability that you had to say no to the drugs. And when you go into these treatment facilities, they are able to help you to develop a routine, to learn about yourself again, to explore what it was that influenced your use in the first place, and to get some therapy to walk through some of those internal wounds or trauma that may have influenced use in the first place. Now, not only do they do that, look above the comments. Look above the comments. Make Allah take control. We're losing our youth. Yes, indeed, we are. Another unknown factor for new users is the issue of tolerance, which is the need to use more with time to get the same effect, and the difficulties with quitting because of the severe withdrawals. Daddy, I don't see anything else. I just see another example of harm reduction, and I see, wine. Yes, wine. Wine is definitely another example of harm reduction. Yeah, so another thing that treatment does is they teach you new coping skills or styles or mechanisms. New coping mechanism, because drug use and alcohol use are a way to cope with an uncomfortable situation, be it trauma, be it heartbreak, be it childhood pain, be it an unpleasant experience, be it job loss, be it relational loss, be it grief and loss. A lot of uncomfortable situations, we tend to fall on drugs and alcohol to cope with these things. Is it helping you heal from it? No, unfortunately. It may help you forget temporarily, but it's still gonna come, and it's gonna come like a flood when it comes next, right? Because it's like when you try and block your receptors, you try and block something temporarily, and then that blockage sort of like wears out. Then whatever was waiting on the other side comes like a flood, like whoosh! And now not only do you have to deal with the stress of whatever it is you were trying to numb, you actually have to deal with the withdrawal symptoms from whatever you took to numb it. So now it's 2 in 1, right? So what treatment does is it also helps you to think about other coping mechanisms that you can use, healthy coping mechanisms that you can use that would actually be effective in helping you resolve the pain that you feel and will not end up destroying you in general. Once you're able to do that and you complete the treatment, and another good thing is for those who are going through grief and loss, and those who may have concerns with people that they have not forgiven, they're holding on to grudges, and all of that is like influencing your need for use. It also helps you with those pieces, right? Like exploring the importance of forgiveness and exploring the different stages of grief and how to make peace with that loved one. Some people may have guilt and shame, or that sense of guilt and shame anyways. You're talking about all of that. Indeed, it is also important to have a good support system like friends and family. Absolutely. People who are able to maintain sobriety post-treatment are mostly people who have that support system. But that's another piece that we're going to talk about, that support system. Because for most people, before they get to that place where they're willing to go to treatment, they have fractured so many relationships that the trust has been compromised. Trust has been compromised. Because now the people that you love and care for have seen a different side of you. They've seen a somewhat self-destructive side of you that they are not sure, that they cannot unsee. Yes, my sister, yes, indeed. That they cannot unsee. And because they cannot unsee it, it's now part of their recollection of the person that you are. Now, most people who go to treatment expect that as soon as they come from treatment, their loved ones are like, yes, you have gone to treatment, you are good, you're safe, we're just going to accept you back as the person that you were before you started using drugs and alcohol. But that's not the reality. It's not. Because even you don't trust yourself after you're done treatment. You don't. There's that fear that, hey, if this drug, if I make contact with this drug right now, post-treatment, 20 days later, 30 days, 40 days later, will I be able to say no to it? You ask yourself that first, right? Because sometimes we tend to expect more from the people around us than we do from ourselves. And we just want them to forget everything that happened and just see the new us and just embrace the new us and just share with us and hold hands with us. But they have their own doubts too. They have their worries. They have their fears based on what they saw before you went to treatment. So it is very important that as you complete treatment, you come out with that realistic expectation, or those realistic expectations of the people I'm going back to may not necessarily trust me fully right now. They may not necessarily trust my sobriety right now, because I need to show them that I have in fact crossed this path. I am in fact on the other side, and I'm gonna stay on the other side. Going for treatment is the easy part. Thank you. Thank you very much. Going to treatment is the easy part. Maintaining sobriety, that's the tough part. That's the tough part, right? Because now you're back to that environment, and that's so when you're done the action phase, you're now at the maintenance stage, right? The maintenance stage is the challenging phase for most people, because even for them, okay, so now the coping mechanism that you held on to for years, you have decided to let go of. You've learned a few other coping mechanisms, but they actually require work, right? So coping mechanisms like going for exercise. I mean, if I could wake up with six-pack tomorrow and not have to go to the gym at all, that would be my preference, like it would be for many other people. But we all know if you want to live a healthy lifestyle, you actually have to work for it. The work is what makes it difficult. Because alongside that work, you're coming back to people that you know. You're coming back to a familiar environment. You're coming back to life's stresses. Life in general has a lot of lemons that it throws at you. So life does not say, oh, okay, I know you've been through so much and you're going through a maintenance stage of change right now, so I'm not going to give you any more lemons. Doesn't do that, right? It still throws lemons at you. Now, what are you going to do with those lemons, right? Another thing I usually see is that troubled people often lash out on friends and family, pushing them away. Exactly, right? Especially when they're going through that maintenance stage of change, because it's like, now I don't have this thing that I had to numb this pain. So now the pain is real. I feel it, and now I have to learn how to process it. And now I have to learn how to walk through it. I have to learn how to take care of myself and try not to take it out on other people. That's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of responsibility, right? But it's a needed responsibility. So when you come out from a structured environment where you wake up at a certain time, you eat at a certain time, there's no drugs in this environment, all the people around this environment are professionals who are fully aware of your situation, and they are trained to support you appropriately, so they know the right thing to say and they know the right thing to do in most cases. And you're back to your relatives and friends who are not necessarily as aware of what you're going through, and they don't necessarily know how to support you as well as the professionals that are trained to do so. Now a little bit more is expected of you. A little bit more is expected of you. You're expected to be an adult again, and being an adult comes with rights, but it also comes with responsibilities. So yes, you have the right for your loved ones to hold hands with you and to be present for you and to support you, but you have a responsibility to also acknowledge them as humans who are flawed, because we're all flawed, who have seen a side of you that they also need time to heal from. Because you went to treatment, they did not go to treatment. You got support, you got the counseling, you got the therapy. Most of them did not, right? They are still processing that side of you that they saw, and they are afraid that it may happen again. They are not sure how long the sobriety is going to last before they see that again. Are they wrong for thinking that way? No. Yes, you want them to be positive and to think positive with you, but even at the back of your mind, you're thinking about that. What if? We don't want to dwell on the what ifs. The what if should be a fuel to do the things we need to do to take care of ourselves. Because you're like a flower, you're like a plant. When you water the self, then you can blossom into this amazing flower. But when you fail to water yourself, then you tend to go back to the old ways that you used to cope with things. So the same expectation you have of other people to be present for you, to love you, to support you, to understand you, to just trust you again, it has to start with you. Do the work. Give them time. Be reasonable. Give them time. Put yourself in their shoe. If you had seen what they saw, self-care is very important. Absolutely. If you had seen what they saw, would you have easily just like pretend as if it never happened? No. So acknowledge their realities, because it is their realities. Acknowledge your reality as well, because it is your reality. And do the work that you need to do to become a better version of you, because when they see a better version of you, they don't have a need to question no more. They will come along that journey with you, but you take that step forward and respect the fact that they are individuals that are also entitled to their own pace. So coming to self-care, when you are in that maintenance stage, I like to talk about the medicine wheel, because it has, you can add to that medicine wheel whatever it is that's important to you. For me, I like to add the spiritual side, and then I add the physical, the emotional, the psychological, and the financial, of course. Add financial to your wheel. That stuff can stress you out like nobody's business. But what do I mean by this, right? So I like to have a balance in life. I love to have a balance in life, because it is that balance that keeps me sane. I'm human, I'm fragile. You're human, you're fragile. But in that same light, you are strong, you're powerful. Right? So, what do I need to feed that spiritual side of my wheel? I need to pray. I'm a Christian, so I need to read my Bible. My favorite verse is Philippians 4:6-7. It says, worry not about anything, but in everything with prayer and supplication, hand your worries over to God, or your stresses over to God, and He'll give you peace beyond human understanding. I'm a living witness of that peace, because I've experienced it so many times. So when I'm stressed out about something, when someone hurts me, when I go through a breakup, when I go through a hurtful situation, feel like somebody's taking advantage of me, instead of allowing that to get the better of me, I go on my knees and I say, God, your child is here. I'm hurting. And I don't like what I feel right now. So I take my pain and I hand over to God. And I'm only able to do that because I try to pour into that spiritual cup on a daily basis. I don't wait until I'm faced with a problem, because then if I wait until I'm faced with a problem, that's not the first option that will come to mind as a solution. I'll think of everything else, every other self-destructive option. But because I make it a point of duty to pour into my spiritual cup daily by praying, I won't lie, I don't read my Bible daily, because that's a whole other sense of responsibility right there. But I pray daily. When I'm too tired to pray, I say the Lord's Prayer. And I try to go to church every Sunday as much as I can anyways. Right? But I try to prioritize that and try to do what I can to keep that spiritual side of me alive. Now that's the spiritual. On the physical side, I don't play with my gym time. A lot of people would say, you're a woman, don't lift weights too much, don't exercise too much, you're becoming manly, you're becoming masculine, those muscles are looking up. That's okay. That's okay. For me, Everything you see as a negative is evidence to me that I am taking care of myself. Right? So even when there's so many responsibilities around me, even though I'm very busy, I have work and all this other sense, like all these other things that I attend to daily, I make time. There's some things you don't wait until you have time. You make time for them. Now, some people will say, oh, where I live, we don't have gyms. I don't have enough money to pay for the gym. You have a house. In these days, YouTube has everything. When I'm not able to go to the gym, I go on my TV, I turn on the TV, I look for beginner workout or any other workout that I want to. For those who are dealing with trauma, yoga is highly recommended for healing. Highly recommended. Because it helps you regain flexibility and it helps you regain that sense of control as you're trying to do all of those moves. So exercise. I try to exercise a minimum of 3 days a week. Minimum. And I can go up to 5 days a week. But I take time to rest. These problems are sometimes too much for us to handle. It is indeed nice to spend some time on ourselves, such as exercise, etc., and then leave the rest for God. Absolutely. I didn't have time to exercise with you yet because of my baby. Wonderful. Thank you, Kadi, for saying that. Thank you for saying that. And thank you, Mutanta. Did I say that right? I'm sorry if I did not. But yeah, we all have reasons why we struggle to do these things, right? So like for someone who just had a baby, for example, right, you may not be able to go to the gym to exercise, but you can look for fun routines that you can do with your child, right? While you're holding your child can be, excuse me for saying this, but your child can be like your weight, right? That you can use to move around to get those movements that you need to work on yourself, right? Running around with your child, playing with your child, like create what works for you within the situation you're faced with. If you have to wake up before your child wakes up, do that. If you have to wait until your child goes to bed, and some people will say, Patricia, you don't understand because you don't have a baby yet. That's true. That's true. But I can tell you that I have a pretty busy life. And every day that I have to go to the gym, I enjoy going to the gym, so it doesn't feel like a chore. It's something that I actually enjoy. When I'm at the gym, I put on my Christian songs. So like I'm not killing anybody. So like I'm doing two things at the same time. I'm pouring into my spiritual cup and I'm pouring into my physical cup, right? I'm listening to worship songs, I'm listening to praise songs, and I feel that refreshment in my system, and I'm exercising at the same time. Even if I just spend 30 minutes at the gym, I will go. And if I'm not able to go to the gym, I'll look for at least a 20-minute online workout, and I'll do it. And that's just one side of that physical aspect, right? There's so many other things you can do to fill that physical cup. Now, when it comes to that social or the emotional cup, we all have a heart that wants to love, a heart that wants to connect, a heart that wants to give, a heart that wants to be loved, a heart that's fragile. I'm very fine, Usman Koroma. How are you? So that heart needs to be taken care of. That heart needs to be taken care of. Now, prayer can take care of your emotional side as much as it takes care of your spiritual side. But what I like to do as well for my emotional side is to journal. I like to write how I'm feeling so that I can process it, I can take it out. I like to talk to people that I trust about how I'm feeling, especially when it hurts. If it's my partner, I'm an open book. I don't hide nothing. What what I feel, I tell you. If I don't like what you're doing, I tell you, I don't like what you're doing. I don't have an emotional bank to store things until 2, 4, 5 days later. No. I like to let it out. And I like to read books too that sort of like helps to like nurture that emotional side of me. Thank you very much, Usman. I do appreciate that. That nurture that side of me, right? And some people will say, like, even that yoga, when I do yoga, that also helps a lot with that emotional side of me, because I feel like I'm regaining a sense of control. And for some people, I do meditation. Some people will say it's not very Christian-like. Now, I don't associate it with any other religion, so I'm able to do it just fine. I do meditation, like, just even when I pray, right? You can pray and then meditate on a certain verse. It helps to like soothe you. I like to do that to take care of that emotional side as well. And sometimes just in my room, I like to turn the light off, maybe light a candle, and just create sort of like that peaceful atmosphere. Some people do it for dates. If you can do it for your partner, you should be able to do it for yourself. Go on date with yourself, right? Like, nurture that emotional side of you so that when you're faced with a roadblock, when you're faced with an emotional injury, because it feels that way sometimes, you have enough in that cup to not drown. You can get back up and take care of you. And you don't learn how to do that in one day, right? Now, to the social side of things, some people say Patricia is never home. I am home sometimes, but I like to socialize. Now, I like to socialize intentionally. I'm too busy, so I don't go to any function or go to every function just because it's a function. I'm not running away from my house. I leave my house on a need to leave my house basis. So I choose my social circles intentionally. I like people that add to my cup and that I can add to their cups as well. So, like, say for example, on the social side, in my where I live, we have a Sierra Leone community here that I'm very connected with. I try to attend those functions. I try to visit friends once in a while, right? I go on outing with friends. And when I'm not able to go out physically, I talk to them over the phone. That's me feeling that social side of me, so I don't isolate from people that I care about. She's a heart of gem, such kind person. Oh, thank you, Bella. I genuinely do appreciate that. Thank you very much. So, like, you feel that social side of you, right? And the more you're able to feel that social side of you, the better chance there is that you find that balance, right? And for that financial piece, I know, Lord knows, I need help when it comes to financial management. So I'm intentional about it, right? I try to track what I spend, although I'm not successful all the time, but I try to do it, because what can cause stress for some people is that the minute you get that money, you go and you spend it, and then come home and realize that the money you just spent on things that you wanted instead of things that you needed, that exact amount of money was needed for bills that would actually get you into a dicey situation if you don't pay those bills. Now you have the things you want and you're left unable to sleep at night because you're not able to pay those bills. Of course, it's going to stress you out. So focus on the things you need first. Save for your tomorrow, and then you can put to the things that you want. Now, going back to the physical, something that I did not mention. Look at what you're eating. What are you feeding yourself? What are you eating? Are you someone who eats a lot of oily food, a lot of junky food? As long as you put food in your stomach, that's it, you're good to go. If it's not good for your health, it's going to cause you harm eventually. It's causing an imbalance in your physical realm. So you have to pay attention to that. Eat food that nourishes you, food that brings you life. Sleep. Technology is getting the better of us. Sometimes you go to bed, you're trying to sleep, but you're on your phone, you're trying to text the last person, you're trying to do this, you're trying to do that. You're not able to sleep. Try and get at least your 8 hours of sleep a day. I don't get it all the time, but I try to get it most of the time. When you sleep well, you eat well, you exercise, you're taking care of your nervous system. And when you take care of your nervous system, when it's faced with real threats, then you're able to better manage that stress. As opposed to when you're not taken care of, when you're not well taken care of, you're on fight-flight mood most of the time. You're on survival state most of the time. And every little thing would make you just flip. You act before you think. You act before you think. And before you know it, you're left with all this guilt and shame that you're trying to manage, and it's getting the better of you. So those are some of the things that I pay attention to make sure that I'm feeding the self, to make sure that I'm loving me, that I'm taking care of me. Because hey, trust me, nobody can love me better than I can love myself. And that goes for you too. Nobody can love you better than you can love yourself. You know what you need at every given time, most of the time anyways. So fill your cup. Fill your cup and make sure that you're filling all of those areas. Don't create an imbalance by focusing too much on that social side. You want to socialize so much that you're not able to get enough sleep. You're not able to eat well. You're not able to sleep well. It's going to cause an imbalance. Don't be so spiritual and or so religious that you neglect other sides of that wheel. Don't be so physically invested that you go to the gym 7 days a week, 4 hours a day, and you're not able to do anything else with your life. Find a balance. Because that balance, especially for those who may have struggled with substance misuse or addiction and are recovering from same, that balance is going to help you maintain sobriety. You know, when you look at all of those areas and you're able to find a balance and focus in all of those areas, you won't tell me that you're bored. Boredom does not know your name. Boredom will not recognize you even if it sees you from a distance or from a close proximity. It will not recognize you because you are keeping yourself busy. An idle mind, they say, is the devil's workshop. When you don't have a lot to do, when you're not able to self-identify the things you need to keep yourself effectively busy, you start to complain of boredom. And that is what sometimes some people say boredom is what got them to using drugs. Boredom got them to using drugs. And most of the things that we do that we're not necessarily proud of, we started doing because of boredom, because we were bored. Keep yourself effectively busy and boredom will not know you. You will not know boredom. You would have no space or time to entertain boredom. And that is why most people say boredom is a choice. It's a choice. Excuse me. When you choose to be productive intentionally, boredom will not be yours to deal with. So for those who are trying to maintain sobriety, please make it an intention. Be intentional about your productivity. Draw that wheel and put what the things that are important to you on that wheel, and make sure that every day, excuse me, I'm just recovering from a cold. Make sure that every day you do something in each and every one of those areas that you identify to fill your cup. Pour into each and every one of those areas daily. Because it is only when you do that that you're going to experience a balanced system and you have a better chance of maintaining your sobriety. Now, there is an additional aspect to the stages of change that is added there that most people argue should not be added there. But that aspect is relapse. Relapse. Some people, for different factors, may go through that sobriety process and relapse. Now there's a lapse and there's a relapse. A lapse is you going through treatment, completing treatment, coming out of treatment, staying a month without use, abstaining for a whole month, maintaining sobriety for a whole month, and then one day you decided to try something because you feel like you could not resist the temptation or the triggers, and you decided to try it and you take it. Now, if when that happens, you take it as a one-time thing, you get back up and continue your journey. Yes, of course, your days of sobriety are, the clock starts again. Yes, of course, it starts again. But if you decided, okay, this happened, I'm human, I'm not perfect, I'm going to continue my journey anyway, this is not the end of the world, this is not the end of me, I'm going to get up and get going, then you have a better chance of continuing on that journey. That's not a relapse, that's a lapse. That's a one-time lapse. And a lapse is better than a relapse. A relapse, on the other hand, is you having that lapse and you waking up and feeling so bad about yourself, critiquing yourself, crying yourself down, saying, I knew I'm not good, I knew I could not do this, I knew I'm not able to maintain sobriety, and because of that, you say, I've fallen down, I'm just going to stay down. And you continue the pattern that you were engaged in before treatment. That is a relapse. You have gone back to your ways of doing things. And that is the challenge. So, to those, especially to my young fellows back in Sierra Leone that I spoke with that recently completed residential treatment and they're going back to their environment that may be faced with stuff like this. Maybe your friends that you knew before treatment are waiting for you to reconnect with them. The jobs that you did not get that led you to using are still not available for you. The relationships that were not going well are still not going well. The environment has not changed much. You're still in the same country. You don't have a visa to live yet. So you're going back to most of the problems that you had before you left. And the chances of you lapsing or relapsing may be very present and very real. It is important to know that if at any point you lapse, don't fall back. Don't fall back. Don't allow that one time to become 500 more times. It is easier to get out of a lapse than it is to get out of a relapse. Connect with your people. Here we have what we call AA groups and NA groups, Alcoholic Anonymous groups and Narcotic Anonymous groups. These groups are groups of people who have gone through a similar journey, and they are like it's a group of support, like it's a support group of people who have gone through similar experiences and they're trying to maintain sobriety. Some in that group may have maintained sobriety for 20 years, and some may just be starting on their sobriety journey, and some may be trying to make that decision to go on that sobriety journey. But either way, these are people who have a similar understanding of what it's like to go through this experience, and they're holding hands with each other to support each other. I don't know if we have groups like that in Sierra Leone, but if we don't, I call upon the people of Sierra Leone to highly consider putting groups like that together. Some people have who they call sponsors here. Sponsors are people that volunteer to support an individual of a few individuals when they are going through a challenging time. So when they're feeling the need to use, they can call upon the sponsor at any time of the day or any time of the night and say, hey, I'm close to using and I need you to talk me out of it. People that they can be comfortable to be honest with. Because let's face it, sometimes we don't feel safe enough to be vulnerable with the people around us. I'll say that again. Sometimes we don't feel safe enough to be vulnerable with the people around us. Whether because we're worried they will judge us, whether because we're worried we'll hurt them, we don't want to hurt them, whether because we are worried they will feel less of us or think less of us, or we're worried they don't know or they won't know how to handle it. Network crisis in Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone always has network crisis. Pastor Maggie, how are you? Welcome, welcome. So for various factors, we don't feel able to be honest with the people around us. And that is why it is important to have sponsors, because these sponsors too sometimes are people who are recovering from an addiction. So some people say they feel better supported by people who have gone through a similar path because they feel like those people have lived experiences and they can understand them better. So find a sponsor, someone you can be honest with. Find a sponsor. Attend AA or any groups. Feel your will. And things will become a lot better. Now, finally, to those who are hoping to explore prevention rather than intervention. All of what we've talked about is the intervention side of things. And when we come to the prevention side of things, there's a lot of reasons why people use. But the most frequent reason I keep hearing is the relationships within the family. The relationship between child and parents. The upbringing. Yeah, someone who can relate, definitely. The upbringing. Most people will say, I don't feel loved at home. I don't feel heard at home. I don't feel seen at home. And because of that, they go out and look for people who can acknowledge them. People who can see them. People who can hear them. And when they do that, they are a lot more vulnerable out there, because if I want to be seen, if I want to be heard, if I want to be acknowledged, I'm going to do whatever it takes out there to be seen, to be heard, to be acknowledged, even to my own disadvantage. Because I'm not thinking about myself in that moment or thinking about what is good for me or what is not good for me. I just want that sense of belonging. I just want to belong. So I'm calling on all parents. Parents in Sierra Leone, parents in the diaspora, I'm calling on all of us to be a bit more intentional with our parenting. Let us be a bit more intentional with our parenting. The world is evolving, and our children are seeing things online. They're seeing movies, they're seeing all these things and seeing how other children are being treated by other parents from different parts of the world, and they have expectations. They want you to sit down and talk with them. They want you to ask them, how was school today? What did you learn today? Did anything happen that bothered you? Did anybody offended you? Is there anything I can do better as a parent today? Is there any way I can love you better? So as much as we want to discipline, as much as we want to set the pace for a structured future, loving our children is a bigger part of that. Let our children grow up with a sense of belonging. Let our children grow up feeling loved, feeling like they know their place on this earth, willing to take up space wherever they find themselves. We don't want children who grow up feeling like they have to hide around the corners all the time, or they have to do too much just to be seen, just to be picked. Let our children grow up with a high self-esteem and sense of self, so that they in turn can give that love to others. We have to teach them how to see themselves through the way we see them. We have to teach them how to appreciate their voice through the way that we appreciate their voice. There's a thing about yelling at children. Stop talking! You don't talk when I'm talking. I'm the adult in the house. No. They have a voice. They're a whole human being. And if they don't feel like they can use their voices in their own homes, why would they be confident to use their voices out of the house? Why? Parents are like their first point of contact. They are like this roadmap that they have to guide them through this life. If they don't feel like they can use their voice with you because you are the adults in the house, so they are not supposed to talk. My father would always say this. My youngest brother, he's the lawyer of the family. I tell you, I always say he's the lawyer of the family because he always wanted to know why. He's the youngest, but would always ask you why. Go to bed at this time, but why? I go to bed at this time, you are awake. Why? They want to make sense of their world. Now, if you just tell him, don't talk to me like that, you're my child, don't ask me why, I go to bed because I said so, period. They grow up believing that they should not question what doesn't make sense to them. They should just accept it because they are children. And when that child becomes an adult, of course that child becomes an undecisive adult. So my father would always say, let's have a conversation. He wants to engage him, to provide a rationale that helps him understand. You're a child. You need a little bit more sleep than I do. Or I am an adult. I've got a lot more responsibilities, that I need to be awake to sort out. So my bedtime is different than yours. And when he understands that rationale, he goes to bed without arguing. He doesn't ask that same question tomorrow, or doesn't try to cause a fuss tomorrow, because now he understands he wants me to go to bed at this time because he loves me and he wants to nurture me and wants to care for me, not because he wants to control me. Our children have voices. Let's allow them to use their voices at home and nurture their curiosity. At a healthy level, of course. Are we spending time with our children? Are we spending time with our children? Are we playing games with our children? Are we reading the Bible with our children, for those of us that are Christians? Are we praying with our children? Are we going for walks with our children? Are we spending time with them? Or are we just different human beings in the house who are doing different things? Everything they're learning to become the future adults that they are going to be, they're learning from you. You're their direct compass. So make time. Make time. Read books with them. Because you are trying to set a trajectory to a brighter future for your child. And when your child is able to contribute responsibly to the society, we all benefit. What values are you teaching your children? Do you know what your children's values are? Do you know what your values are? What values are you passing on to them? What values? Those are conversations that you have. Do you make time to reflect with your children at the end of the day? Do you all sit down, go like do a round table and say, what happened today? What about today would you have changed if you could? Let's communicate more. It starts from the home. Because when they learn to communicate at home, they will be able to communicate in their relationships. They will be able to communicate at their places of work. They will be able to communicate in their social circles. And they will be able to assert themselves a lot better, rather than passively ignoring important topics, pouting away. Well, you don't want to talk to me, so I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to deal with this no more. Bam. Or being aggressive and making everything about them. So when we're talking about prevention, we're talking about connection. It's busy. We're all busy. We're all busy. But if you have 4 jobs, because you feel like you need to provide for your children, and your children are saying, would rather you spend time with us, cut those jobs down to 3. If you can pay the bills, if you can feed them, maybe that's all they need. The other tech stuff that you buy for them to keep them busy, they may not need it if they have you to have that one-on-one conversation with them, to spend time with them, to do traditional activities with them. They may not need all the techie stuff. Respect your children. Respect their point of views. It may not align with yours, but it is important. When you're able to listen to your child, you're able to respect your child's point of views, you're teaching your child that their point of view should be respected in and away, within and away from the home. And this goes especially for our relatives and friends back in Sierra Leone too. Because there's that I'm a man soldier parenting style there. That is like so that is so clear in like, I am the parent, I do A, B, C, or D, I make sure you're alive, and I make sure you stay well, I make sure you take care of yourself. You on the other side, you are the child. When I talk, you listen. When I ask you, do it. When I say go there, you go there. You don't ask me any questions. Not in this day and age. That may not be in the best interest of your child anymore. Because when your child becomes an adult and has to interact with other children who were given the space to learn the value of their words and their voices and their being, your child will then have a lot of challenges to relate and to engage in a healthy way. Your child will feel lost in that circle. Now, as much as we make all of this flexibility for our children, don't forget to be a parent. You are the adult for a reason. You are the adult for a reason. You're the parent for a reason. There are certain things that you've seen in your lifetime that your child may never understand. There are certain decisions that you've made, that you've learned from, that your child may never understand. So there are certain things, if you see your child is intentionally trying to jump into a hole, instead of saying, oh, I don't want you to jump into that hole, Please don't jump. If you jump into that hole, you get hurt. Sometimes it's important to actually hold them back. They may not like it in that moment, but sit down and have a teaching moment with them. So instead of waiting for them to jump into the hole and maybe don't even make it out, hold them back. Sit down and have a conversation with them. That's why you are the adult in that relationship. That's why you are the parent in that relationship. So love, support, be available, but also be a parent. Also be a parent. Teach, nurture, so that when your child grows up and that child also becomes an adult, you're able to look at them and be proud of the person you see. You'll be a proud parent, and the community will be thankful for your parenting because your child will be a good addition to society. Don't spoil your children. Love your children. Don't spoil them. It doesn't benefit anyone when a child is spoiled, not even you, the parent. So let's do what we can to make our children to help our children grow into healthier adults, to reduce the adverse childhood experiences for our children, to improve the environments that our children are growing in the interest of a better future, of a healthier generation, and healthier old age for us, really, because when your child becomes an adult, if they are a functional, healthier adult, you'll be able to actually have time to enjoy your old age in peace. But if they're not healthier adults, you will not have peace either. So let's do what we can to improve our children's experiences in the interest of everybody, really. I hope this has been helpful. We've talked quite a bit about the different things that people do. I want to send a shout out to Hope Rehabilitation Center in Sierra Leone. They're doing a phenomenal job. A few people that I know personally recently completed their residential treatment with them, and I wish them all the best. All of those who graduated alongside them, I wish you the very best. Trust in yourself, trust in your ability to beat this. You've gone months without use. That is to tell you that you can survive without the drug. You can actually thrive without the drug. When you go back, allow yourself to think positively. The same mind where you build the thoughts that lead to use, because relapse does not happen in a day. It does not happen in a day. Or relapse rather does not happen when you actually take the drug and use it. It starts from the thought process. It starts from the mind. From the minute you leave your house knowing that the place you're going to has potential for relapse, and you still go into that place with that potential, knowing that you may not be able to say no to it, but you go. That minute that you decide to leave, that's the minute that you've decided to make that decision to relapse. Your power lies within the environment where the drug is not available. So stay back. If you feel like going to that environment has a high chance of causing you relapse, don't go. Don't go. When you're having the triggers, when you're having the thoughts, keep in mind that they are not here to stay. Like everything else, they will pass. They will pass. Take some deep breath if you need to. Try and distract yourself. Look for other things to do. Go for the gym, like go to the gym, exercise, sit down and have conversations with people that will try and redirect your thoughts. Because if you cannot beat your thoughts, then try and redirect them. You can do it. You can do it. You've been through a rough patch, but you can do it. I want to see you turn a different page. And I want to see you leave to share your testimony. So I ask that you maintain this journey, this sobriety journey that you're on. To the families of those that are struggling with Kush use in Sierra Leone, I see you. It's not an easy journey. Kush is not just a spiritual problem. So those who are probably thinking, I'm going to go to the how do they call them? To the Mercy Man to see who is trying to hurt my child. Those who are thinking it's just their child has been bewitched. It's bigger than that. Try and learn about the drug. Try and learn about how you can be a support to them. Try and learn about how you can reduce your judgment so that they would be better able to trust you and talk to you. Try and learn about how you can recreate a safe space for them within that house so that they can feel safe enough to come home. Try and learn about what you can do to be a better support to them and hold hands with them. Try and learn about the different stages of change so you know what support they need in each stage of change. That is your responsibility. To the community, to Sierra Leone, to the leaders of Sierra Leone, we already have enough issues that we're dealing with. Honestly. Sierra Leone is too small for all these issues. Sierra Leone is dealing with too much already. Kush should not be part of our problems to deal with again in Sierra Leone. Hold hands with your community. Your loved one may not be affected by Kush. Your relative may not be affected by Kush. So because of that, you feel like it's not a big deal. It's not as big a deal as they make it. Because it has not hit you yet. Don't wait for it to hit you. See the cries of the youth. Hear the cries of the youth. Hear the cries of Sierra Leoneans. And do what you need to do to stop the importation of the other aspects of Kush or drugs that are being laced with Kush. Support the treatment centers that are trying their very best to support the Kush victims. The youth are calling for jobs so that they can make themselves useful after graduation. They don't have to work in offices. It doesn't have to be all these fancy jobs. Provide business opportunities, provide loan opportunities so that they can make themselves useful, they can make themselves resourceful, they can contribute positively to the country, to their family members, and they can feel proud of themselves. There's so many raw untapped resources in the country. When our children or youth are going to school, instead of focusing on studying for professions that they may never engage in within the country or they don't have enough of, try and teach professions that are actually useful within the country. Overseas is overseas. There's so much more that youth can do within Sierra Leone that would help to improve Sierra Leone's economy and the country in general. Focus on building those skills so that when they come out of college, they're not just coming out with a paper and a title, but they're coming out able, willing, and ready to implement the skills that they've learned, and the opportunities are also there for them to implement those skills. The youth are calling. The youth want your support. Please, Papa government. I know this is not just the government, but this is specifically for the government. Let's try and tackle this Kush situation so that the future does not continue to look gloomy. Because from where I see it right now, from where I stand, I see a very gloomy future if this continues. So please, Papa government, please, to all politicians and aspiring politicians, focus on what actually needs to be done in the interest of this youth so that they can recover, make themselves useful, and reduce the factors that influence them to use it. And above all, I pray that God will guide you all, that God will see you all through this very challenging time. Trade, I like that, Kadi. There's a lot of opportunities for trade. There's so many untapped opportunities in Sierra Leone, honestly. There's a lot of opportunities for trade, but we all want to work in offices. We don't have enough offices for everybody to work in offices. So please, Papa government, please, we call upon you and we ask you all to please do the needful. Let us all do our individual parts so that together we can tackle the collective problem. Thank you to everybody who joined the live today. I'm humbled. I'm so grateful. I've talked enough. I feel like I have a headache now. Family members, do not give up on your loved ones that have become victims. They need you even if their actions suggest otherwise. Yes, 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 yes. Family members, that's a call to all of you. Don't give up on your loved ones. Don't give up on your loved ones. Hey, Desmond. How are you, Desmond? Thank you for watching. But family members, do not give up on your loved ones. And actually, to diasporans, what are we going to do about this? I know someone mentioned if only there was a loan that they can tap into to have to do businesses, it will really help them a lot. We may not be in Sierra Leone. We may not be directly affected by this. But to every Sierra Leonean that is out of the country, eventually you're going to want to go home. You're going to want to go home eventually. What happens when you go back to that country and you don't like what you see? Don't wait until you get there. Let's hold hands together. I put up the Dindin email address. If you want to collaborate with me, if you want to hold hands with the Dindin team, it is dimdin@gmail.com. No, Dindin Podcast. dimdinpodcast@gmail.com. Send an email. Let us work together to collaboratively support. We have a part to play as well, and we must play our part. If we all do what we need to do, in no time, this Kush crisis will no longer be a Kush crisis. I mean, Sierra Leone is such a resilient country. The people of Sierra Leone are such resilient people. The amount of things that Sierra Leoneans have been through, and always they rise on the other side. Talk about the mudslide. Talk about Ebola. Talk about COVID-19. Talk about the war. There is so much Sierra Leoneans have been through. And we fought through all of that. Now we can fight through this too. We can fight this together. So if you are a diasporan, a Sierra Leonean who is in the diaspora, and you are, or even if you're not a Sierra Leonean in the diaspora, if you are an ally and you're interested in supporting and holding hands with Sierra Leoneans in and out of the diaspora, or within the country or in the diaspora, you want to hold hands with us to tackle this crisis, please send me an email or leave a comment. Let us do what we can to tackle this issue together, because it is only when we work together that we'll see progress, sustainable progress in the interest of the nation and its people. I have a serious headache right now, So I'm going to stop talking. But this has been a treat. I've enjoyed it. And you all have stayed with me for just about 2 hours. We are 10 minutes, 9 minutes away from 2 hours. That's a long, long time. Oh my goodness. But thank you. I hope this has been helpful. And to all those who stayed with me from start to finish, I'm so grateful for all of you. God bless and keep you all. Until our next live broadcast next Sunday, where we'll talk about the parenting in the diaspora. Sabe, Sandindin. I'm your host, Becca, and I remain your humble host. Sabe, Sandindin. We all now one. We are all one. We all are the same. So let us walk together. Thank you. I love you all. God bless you. Mwah.